Welcome to the Morpheus Cyber Podcast. Today, music dies, crypto crumbles. When AI can fool 97% of people and quantum computers threaten to break Bitcoin, we're living in interesting times. Grab your phone and vote in our live polls. ahaslides.com/MCA3.
Turns out 97% of us can't tell AI music from human creativity. So much for the soul of art.
Trump's new AI czar has venture capital conflicts that would make a blockchain blush.
Amazon just declared war on OpenAI with Nova models because apparently AWS wasn't monopolistic enough.
Quantum computers are about to turn your crypto wallet into expensive digital confetti.
Vote along with us at ahaslides.com/MCA3. Let's dive in.
Okay, guys, here we are. It is recording day. Hey, thanks for joining us. We are the three sub-billionaire podcasters on MorpheusCyber.com. Thanks for joining us today. We are moving ahead, and one of the features that we have is Tech Futures Index, and that's techfuturesindex.com. But I want to introduce to you Jim Rounsville, who is a longtime friend and technologist and another sub-billionaire, and Gus Stein. And all of us have known one another for 20 plus years, but we decided to get together and have a podcast about the topics that we work in and live in on a regular basis. And that is AI, cyber, crypto, quantum, robotics. Okay, so here we are. We're kicking it off. And Jim, how you doing today? What's been going on in your life?
AI is a big part of my world and everything. Now it is everyone else, I hope. That's the future for everyone. So if you're out there listening today and you're not aware of how to use AI, it's your future. Whether you want to admit it or not, you're going to have to become part of that whole group of people that know how to use AI. I heard it said the other day, I think one of those newscasters was asking one of Trump's cabinet saying, how do you think this is going to affect the jobs market? Aren't people going to lose their jobs because of AI and all of this? And he said, just think of it this way. AI is your personal tutor. Your boss asks you to do something, you run to AI and you ask him how to do it, and you respond and you win. You do better. You keep your job. It just makes everything better. Now, that's the same thing as we're looking now at AI and the stock market and all of that. We all volunteered to use different AIs to try to pick stocks. And so we're doing that. We're trying to learn whether or not AI is good at helping us in the stock market. And so far, I'd say it's...
Gus, what do you think?
I agree with what Jim said, but I wanted to say what's new in my life is I just became a grandfather.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. My oldest daughter just had a baby, Bradley, and he's going to be a recipient of the baby fund.
Yeah.
And I was talking to her all about that.
Hey.
$1,000.
Yeah, when did that actually, I think it started January 1st, 2025, every baby.
You're grandfathered in. They haven't kicked it out yet. Right now, you have to go to, first of all, you have to have a social security number, which nowadays oftentimes happens at birth. That never happened when my kids.
No.
But so most babies do have a social security number, but then there's an IRS form that you can go apply for it. So I told my daughter all about that and she's excited.
Yeah.
That's great. And who was it? Michael Dell and his wife and family gave, what was it, $6.25 billion to 25 million children. And that includes all minors. 25 million minors are getting $250 into that same Trump fund from the Dell Family Foundation.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great.
And I think other companies will follow suit. That's just a drop in the bucket in the big picture of things. But if 1,000 companies do, that's going to be pretty empowering.
Exactly.
And certainly Microsoft and Google have deep pockets, and Apple, they could all do that. So we'll see.
Bill Gates and Warren Buffett have committed to giving all of their wealth away while they're still alive, and or when they die, what have you. But this is a good place for that kind of wealth to be going to as well. So if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of the Tech Futures Index dashboard, you'll see the baby franchise growth. And there, we put a chart together where it starts at age 0, and as it grows, there's a conservative estimate of about what you're going to get, which would be by the time I think that they are 18 or 20. I think I calculated that out. You can go to the site and you can calculate it, techfuturesindex.com, and you can see that conservatively, we're probably looking at that $1,000 of every child born in America will be funded. And at the end of, I think, 18 years, it's at 6,848 if it's just invested in the S&P. And if you add any money to it, like there's $250 that just got added by the Dell Foundation. So that's $1,250. And companies can add to that, I think, $2,500 a year. Parents can add $5,000 a year if they want. And that money starts to grow. And if it's fed by additional monies and it's got an aggressive 18% return, that's going to be $62,000 by the time they're 18. And that's
pretty good
conservative
return.
Numbers. Yeah. It's
I don't
so
know
that's
if 18% is conservative, but
What a great way to teach the nation how to save.
yeah.
Before that, there was not some default place to put gifts of money. And so money would go directly to people instead of putting them into this thing that would grow and it
Well,
would create some real
too,
wealth.
Jim.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
pre-tax.
Yeah.
That's the key.
But it definitely is teaching the nation how to invest.
And it's franchising. That's why I call it the baby franchise. It's franchising children into the capitalist system that we have here in America. And a lot of people feel quite disenfranchised right now. So it's good that we're finding ways to basically incentivize, franchise all of these, every American, in the future of the capitalist system that has basically built the world and pulled the world up. Not just America, but the rest of the world's been pulled up by these same capital markets. Now, in addition to the baby franchise, if you look in the top left, we've got our 5 different technologies: quantum, crypto, robotics, cybersecurity, and AI. And I just am taking this report is for the last 2 weeks. And so you can see what's been going on. Quantum's doing nicely, crypto's up, but it went way down 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, and now it's started to come back up. So it shows a gain. But if you've been following it, it dropped a lot a couple of weeks ago. And
Yeah,
so
we were just talking earlier when Gus had pointed out, though, that the overall trend is much different if you look out a further time frame, like a couple of months or something. Gus, what were you talking about when you were saying
Well,
that?
6 weeks ago, I think it was 6 weeks ago, roughly, Bitcoin was at an all-time high. Now it's what, 90K?
Yeah, my daughter Sarah sold. She didn't sell the whole Bitcoin. She bought a Tesla, and she had 1 or 2 Bitcoins. So she sold part of it and enough to pay the taxes on the selling the Bitcoin, and she bought herself a brand new Tesla with all of the bells and whistles and the full self-driving and that sort of thing, because that girl drives like a maniac with 2 kids who are in sports, and they're traveling sports every single day. She's driving long distances to take them to all the practices, and then on weekends, it's even more because it's all over Nevada and Northern California.
Now she could just stay home and just tell Tesla to take him to practice and then come back.
Theoretically,
That's interesting. Can you do that with your kids? I don't think you can do that.
I don't know if you can or not, but those are the questions that are going to come up.
Yeah,
Cybercab,
that's a real
right? When
Yeah.
Elon has a cyber cab, you'll
Yeah.
have a cyber cab out in front of your house picking up your kids to take them to school. I
Yeah.
don't know why that wouldn't
Yeah.
be. It's safer. It's safer than us driving them statistically.
That's true.
Sadly.
Yeah,
So then-
sadly.
Or happily.
So
Yeah.
that brings me to another issue and another thing that we have on the Tech Futures Index, which is in the top right-hand corner. You see the net worth per capita of nations who have a sovereign wealth fund. So let's just take a look at Norway, where every single Norwegian is worth $338,000. Why? Because way back, I think in the 90s or maybe even before, they put together a sovereign wealth fund. And so every one of their citizens is worth $338,000 now. Now, if you look on the far, although the Americans do not have a sovereign wealth fund yet, but it is coming, we are collectively, every man, woman, and even those babies are worth minus $112,000, which is just illustrative of how other nations are looking out for their citizens, and we are way far behind in the debt. Now, there may be other countries who have similar debt, but the thing is, we can get the debt because they know we'll pay it back. A lot of nations, Greece almost went bankrupt, 10, 15 years ago, because they had so much debt, and the EU, who gave out that debt, had to take a haircut on it, right? And then they also had to go into a massive austerity program. Not a fun picture for all those retirees, right? Their Social Security essentially is being clipped and that sort of thing. So anyway, that's what Tech Futures Index has on it. Now, if you take a look at the bottom left, we have the private index. Now, why did we do that, guys? Because there's all of these AI companies, robotics companies, and they're not even public yet, right? So we wanted to have some way to look at these private index rankings. And for those of you who might be interested, this is not an investment site per se, but it's definitely good for talking points, like these talking points that we have here today. But the private index rankings are to show what, like, Anthropic and Cursor and XAI and OpenAI and SpaceX and Stripe. Stripe is not a public company. Canva. Many of you may know those things. And then, of course, ByteDance. But we wanted to have some way of seeing the ups and downs of private indexes or the private funds going into these private companies, and just have some way of seeing how they're doing, what their valuations are. So we have an index, and you can see that Anthropic's on top right at the moment. But we have a valuation number there, and Cursor, that we've been talking about on the pod here, just got $2.3 billion, and that's in the little notes there in the latest news. And they have a $29.3 billion valuation as a result of that $2.3 billion raise. But when these companies start going public, it's a good idea to be watching them, because watching what they're doing in the private rankings are going to help you understand if you want to participate in the IPO.
Right.
And it's all related to our companies. So there's AI companies in there, there's robotics, cyber, crypto, etc., that you can take a look at. And so in one eyeball shot, you can pretty much get, if you're following tech stocks and the growing market, you can watch this. And if there is a bubble, we're going to see it, right? And we'll see the bubble, and then we'll see the bubble burst, and we'll be there because we've got the data to take a look at it.
This is primarily historical purposes, because things are going to change rapidly every month with all of these companies, especially the AI companies. volatile to say the least, just in the sense that they're racking up so much debt creating these data centers and the ability to deliver on this. They know that now. They're highly leveraged. Down the road, we're going to see some profits that come in, and that's when, like you're referring
Well,
to,
that's CERN.
there might be an IPO at that point, but we're going to have to watch it down the road. But yeah, this is nice to see the historical where they come from over time. It's pretty nice. No one else is doing this that I know of. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Bill,
Well,
good job. Good job on
thanks.
that.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, Robinhood does have some of these people have bought privately. They've bought OpenAI and SpaceX and different companies like that. And Robinhood has created a fund where these people can put some of those stocks that they bought privately into funds that are for sophisticated investors on Robinhood that you can invest in. And they actually
Nice.
are building an index. You might want to follow that.
Cool. Excellent. No, it's really a very informative app. And so if you don't know anything about investing, which I'm not a big knowledgeable person in investing, I do have a little bit of money in the stock market, but it's not huge. But at the same time,
You're a
if you don't know
sub-billionaire,
anything,
Jim.
hey, absolutely a sub-billionaire. But anyhow, so if you're really interested in learning, this is a good place to start. Try to keep an eye on things. Try to understand it all, especially because it has things like the sovereign wealth fund, the baby franchise, the comparison, the private indexes, all these things. You need to kind of learn a little bit about all those things so that you can bring your knowledge up. And especially with this, all these baby funds now, your child, if you're a young adult and you have a child that's going to be the recipient of one of those, it probably pays for you to understand a little bit more about the stock market.
Yeah, and the other thing is that these funds are specifically big fraud charges if the parents try and dip into that money. It's going to be
Yeah,
pretty
I can
much
see that.
impenetrable until the child is, I think they specified 20 years
18.
old. Is it 18?
Yeah, I didn't
It's
think of
18.
that, Bill. That could be a real problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a bummer if a parent tries to get into that, or a guardian. It may not even be a parent, but a legal guardian. So anybody that's in that position, if they try to use that money, I'm glad there's something in there that they would get prosecuted for that or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's dicey.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, what do we have on today's agenda, guys? I see something about music here. We're going to go into a territory where, Jim, you're the closest thing to a musician, and Gus, a lot of musicians. As a matter of fact, I think you've had a lot of encounters with Prince, which is actually one of my favorite artists.
Yeah, he's a pretty talented guy. Yeah, I've probably met Prince, I don't know, 300 times.
Wow.
Yeah. I
That's
haven't heard him play
impressive.
300 times. I used to be in the nightclub business in Minneapolis, where he's from. You remember the movie Purple Rain?
Yep.
Yeah, I worked at that place. It's called First Avenue is what it's called. I don't know what it's called in the movie, but that's a real nightclub right downtown Minneapolis. And Prince would
Yeah.
come in and pop in and play. It just surprised the whole audience. He'd come in and play 3, 4 songs and leave. It's really pretty cool.
Yeah. Now that after I saw this little article come up about this an ability for people to tell the difference between AI created music and a real artist, human beings creating it. And oh, that's cool. I thought that was cool in one sense, but I don't create music myself. I play music. I played in multiple bands over time. I can attest to that because I can't hear very good anymore. When I was young, I played with big amplifiers and I did not consider that was going to affect me down the road. And yeah, it has definitely. That and also shooting guns without ear protection. Those are both dumb things. But so I'm advising those that are young, ear protection all the way so that when you
I
get
hear you.
older.
I hear
Anyhow,
you, Jim.
yeah. So anyhow, so when I was looking at all this, it was like I thought it was cool that there was this whole ability to create music. But I could see the other side of it because the big deal right now, why there's some lawsuits against these companies that are providing that's Umio and what is it, Umio, there's 2 or 3 others. I can't remember
Suno.
the names. Yeah, so all these companies are now, some of them like Umio, I think it's Udio, that's what it is, Udio. You can get 10 free songs per day or something. Oh, three free songs per day. So you can go and create them and download them 3 every day for free. So I'm thinking, that's pretty cool, except for the lawsuit is the fact that these companies trained their systems on big music repositories. Think of all the different online repositories that we have out there that you can subscribe to. So they've been training their AIs on those music repositories. So that's what the lawsuit's all about. And it'll be interesting how that plays out, because if you're a member of Udio or one of these other companies or Avia, whatever those are, but you have to now consider that everything you're creating right now could be some sort of a copyright infringement. So you're going to have to protect what you're doing, because there's nothing to protect you right now if you use these tools. So if you start creating this stuff and then just uploading up to Apple Music or whatever, you may have a legal suit following you right behind you. So those are big issues they need to really pay attention to. I looked into AI and I said, so there's two issues that I came up with immediately when I started thinking about one. Oh, very cool that you can do all this. That's what I said earlier. But there's two big issues that came up in my mind. One is, all right, so how do you protect what you've done? Because everybody's out there having access to these tools, and now it's just up to your prompting, right? How did you prompt for this song? You may not even know how to play an instrument, but you prompted and you created a song at the same time somebody else prompted to create a song, and they sound almost identically the same. So what are you going to do? How are you going to protect yourself? You can't upload it up to a big music repository without
Well,
maybe the other guy
apparently,
saying,
Jim, apparently Spotify had to remove 100,000
yeah,
recordings that were
7%
uploaded.
of their stuff. Yeah. So yeah, it was huge. And they removed it all because they knew a lawsuit's coming. So I think the second part was also, what could you do today if you're a true creator of maybe you have real musical talent and you're a true creator that is out there using these tools, which eventually all of these artists, even the real performing artists, will probably start using these tools as well. But how do you protect what you got? And if you, we don't have time to do it now, but AI will tell you, in fact, it came back and told me 7 things that you should do effectively to protect the music that you're creating on these platforms. So I would encourage you, if you're doing that, to go take a look. And AI is a great place to at least give you some guidance. I wouldn't call it legal advice, but at least it's some
Well,
guidance.
yeah. So, Gus, what do you think about the fact that 97% of people don't know that it's AI music? Now, computer voices, computer sounds used to be, you could really tell, but they say 90% failed to detect that it was built by AI. What do you think of that?
I think there's a couple things. Jim brings up a good point about all the legal issues, and that's uncharted territories, and we'll see where that's going to go. My take on it is, wow. I mean, we've seen this in the past. You think about having synthetic music put in. I don't know if you remember the Who Won't Get Fooled Again. And it plays, I saw them in concert, and that's synthetic. And that was the backdrop of one of their biggest songs. And we think about the Monkees. The Monkees, weren't playing their own music. It was a TV show. I guess what I'm saying is, who cares? But legal aside, if it's creating good music, I say upgrade. I think it's great. And I think that the bands, I guarantee you they're already using it. Maybe not to create music, but just to write me a little riff that would fit into this segment right here, and maybe to get the idea from that, and then the human takes over. I think it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
but yeah, I think it's cool too. But if it's trained on real songs that were created by human artists, and then it's pulling almost identical sounds from it, isn't that simply the same kind of thing that lawsuits were all about with sampling? Remember music sampling and all the lawsuits that came out when all these really non-talented people were sampling from real songs and creating these mixed music songs
Yeah,
and
musical
getting
plagiarism.
lawsuits. Yeah,
Musical
absolutely.
plagiarism.
They're reducing the scarcity, which reduces the value. And
Yeah,
basically,
that's
the
true.
machines aren't coming for factory jobs anymore. They're coming for the Grammy nominations.
The Grammy said that now they're going to require artists to disclose that that more than 20% of their track was created by a human. So up to 20% of your track can be
So they
created by
already
an
gave
AI.
up 80%, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
That was
Yeah, they've
quick.
already given up 80%.
That
That's
was
the other
quick.
side of that story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma, and we'll see how it plays out. It's
Yeah,
just like AI struggling with being trained on all the words of the internet, and then they write a book and it's grabbing from stuff that other people
Hmm.
created. Yeah,
yeah, and the current blockchain and digital rights management systems aren't designed to prove human authorship versus AI generation. And of course, if you generate something with AI, you want to own that because that prompting and the methods that you used are still part of the creative process. The world is just changing, and the sad thing is that it's changing exponentially. And that's the difficulty that we're in today, I think, is just that the rapidity of the changes are catching us all off guard.
Yeah. And I think as a final note on what can you do to protect what you create using these tools, just document everything. Just if you're creating, Bill, you're doing a lot of this programming that using tools like Cursor, but the bottom line is even with that, document how you came up with the source code, where document your prompting, right? If you're going to release that as a product down the road, you're going to have to show that you created this from scratch somehow. And so that's the same thing with the music world. Let's just even get into the fact that look where video is going to go down the road. This is audio right now. 97% of humans can't tell the difference. Wait until they get to video to a place where 97% of humans cannot tell the difference whether this is AI video or
The
not. Then we're in
next
trouble.
the next Moana movie or whatever is going to be created by AI, right? And they're already doing little bits and pieces and have been for a long time. But the trouble is that it's going to get even worse because guys like anybody who fell off a pumpkin truck can go to VO AI and the new Gemini stuff and ask it to create a little clip or a movie, and it does it. So it's pretty crazy. That is in part of what's in the realm of David Sacks, who is in the news today because he's the AI czar of the current administration. And so they are basically asserting that he's got a lot of holdings and he's been a venture capitalist for years. And so the New York Times is accusing him of personally benefiting from his position as the AI czar in the administration. That's an interesting situation, and I think it is good for a discussion. I don't know what you guys think, but I'd be interested in hearing.
Yeah,
tell you, my thoughts on it is that it is an interesting dilemma, but anybody that's going to be in the position that Sachs is in to influence policy sure better have some experience in that industry. In other words,
that's right.
bought and sold and have invested in the AI space. Otherwise, they get somebody like me in there who I've even invested in AI. I guess I would be ineligible, but get my daughter in there who's 13 and not the one that had the baby. And what good is that going to do? You got to have somebody
Well, or you
knowledgeable.
get a government bureaucrat who has an angle, has a party, has a ideology of some sort, and then you just give them all this power in an area where they have zero technical knowledge, they have zero business knowledge, they have
Right.
no stake in the outcome themselves, and then you want a czar to be appointed who is. And the other thing is, I think that it's important for us to know that the AI czar is a special government employee. It's an SGE. And an SGE is a part-time employee. That means that they spend time on their own things and they spend time on government things. It's a
Yeah,
part-time
they can
job.
only work for the government for 120 days in the year, so that's it.
Yeah,
So,
and you can spread that out so that it's half time or whatever. But the issue is that If you're going to have somebody like that advise, obviously they still have their day job, right? Because these guys are turning down any salaries and that sort of thing in these
I don't
particular.
There's always
understand.
going to be an agenda. There's
I
always an
don't
agenda.
understand. I don't understand what this is all about because Sacks divested he had options on so many AI companies and he divested all of those. In fact, so much that his partners on the All In podcast said, "Hey, why don't you tell us you were divesting and sell?" Because he took a loss on those stocks.
You said
He sold 50
50%.
cents on the dollar. He sold off, and all of the rest of the podcast guys were saying, "I would have paid you 55% on the dollar." So 55 cents on the dollar. And anyway, so he
So it's
divested and
just New
then
York Times noise.
absolutely. And then they ran it through the White House had their attorneys look at it and he was completely cleared as he has no benefit to this at all. But then
As
they
a matter
said,
of fact, if you look at the bottom line, he has ended up losing a massive
yeah.
amount of opportunity and money because he's in that position and had to divest because he's a
Right.
brilliant guy, has all the experience necessary to be the AI czar to benefit himself, but instead he is providing the service back to all of the citizens of the United States to basically help us shepherd our way through. And do we want some bureaucrat to do that? No. We
Well,
Who
need
so
also
people
that,
who
has
are
an agenda.
knowledgeable.
The
you know,
bureaucrat has an agenda as well. It may not be direct financial. I know, maybe we should put Pelosi in charge.
Oh,
She
well,
seems to be very good.
she's got a better track record in the Standard and Poor's and a whole bunch of different investors. She's done better than most hedge funds and stuff. So, yeah, she's done quite well with her insider information. And
I think we can all agree that as a taxpayer ourselves, we want experts managing the money we give to the federal government. And really, up until this administration, and I'm not necessarily saying that everybody agrees that Trump is the guy to follow, but I have seen a lot of really wise moves, bringing in the types of advisors that he has with Musk and now Sachs and others that are on the financial side of the house that really are technical giants and financial giants in their own industry. They made their money. They don't need to make any more money. That isn't what their purpose is. In fact, almost all of them have lost money to come and help the government because they can see a great need. If that's, I heard a thing about the way, I think it was on the All In podcast. He said that Thomas Jefferson had said, "I'm leaving my business at a great loss so I can go serve in the government for a while, which is not what my favorite thing is to do, but I feel it's so important I have to do it."
it's
Thomas Jefferson.
also for a short time.
For a short time,
Right.
yeah.
Short time. How long are some of these lifetime government bureaucrats? Never had a job. Never, ever had a for-profit job. And yet now they're coming in and they're picking winners in various industries and they're regulating various industries without any knowledge or stake in
Well,
the game.
even if they had a job, they've never run a business.
And they don't do it and they don't do it for 4 years or 8 years.
Right,
They do
right.
it for 40 years.
We keep
Pelosi.
voting them in. Sure, term limits is something that maybe should be considered, but they are
Absolutely.
winning the elections.
It's because of pork, right?
It's a popularity contest. It's
Yeah.
not.
It's like
People
they get
don't-
money for their constituents in their particular represented areas, and they are represented, but they go and they get pork, which is government spending, and they put it in their particular areas that they represent, and people look at that and say, I benefited from some of the pork barrel spending, so I'm going to continue to vote for whoever it may be who's in office for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, sometimes 50 years. These people get into government service
Yeah.
and they call it service, but it's really, they get drivers, they get all these luxuries of having airplanes and just massive budgets and they are at the top of those things, and they don't just come in for 4 or 8 years. Like I said, they stay there for 40 or 50 years, and that's where the problem is.
Yeah, every time I listen to Scott Bessent talk, I'm just amazed. It's just we're so fortunate to have a guy like him that's in charge of the
He's very
of the
level-headed. The
future.
Treasury
Yeah,
Secretary, yeah, very
yeah,
level-headed.
amazing guy.
It's also
Yeah,
funny how they come into office with, they don't have a pot to piss in, and they leave with a fortune.
oh, yeah, millions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yep.
that wasn't what Jefferson had in mind.
no,
Mm,
and I don't
for
think
sure.
he benefited. As a matter of fact, Jefferson, his mansion, so to speak, in Monticello, Virginia. I don't know if you guys are aware, but he was a pauper when he died.
No.
And he was one of the people who they said, hey, we can't, that's why we give our presidents a lifetime allotment and lifetime, a lot of different
Mm,
lifetime things because of him. And the fact that he was a pauper when he died, but yet look at how much he gave and sacrificed to the nation as one of our forefathers. And so it was costly to him. And it was embarrassing to see that you look around the world and you see the most prosperous nation in the world, but yet some of our presidents were ended up being paupers because we didn't take care of them. Now we do, and that's been taken care of, but it was an issue in the beginning.
yeah.
Interesting.
Hmm.
So what else is new, Bill?
There's a lot of stuff happening out there, and we all know and have heard of AWS for years, right? They are the leading, I think they've got 30% of the data center business around the world. And they have just announced, and Bezos has announced that he's bringing in $300 billion and all the infrastructure and add-on capability of AWS and their existing services, these Nova models,
I
challenge
like it.
the OpenAI dominance.
Yeah, I like what they're doing. He's talking about what he calls an AI factory vision, where he's putting AI in a box and putting it on-prem. And so that most of this activity with AI happens locally on-prem for big businesses that are concerned about data privacy, regulatory compliance, and then being tied into a vendor, right? Being stuck with a particular AI vendor. So they are looking at putting that on-prem and then basically being able to segregate it completely from the internet, which is something I think the government's going to want to do. So pretty smart, because if he gets embedded within these big companies like that with this AI in a box kind of situation, it's going to be a little difficult for them to just shift and go somewhere else. I think they're going to stick with it. It's smart
So
thinking on his part.
yeah, so Gus, you're going to be able to buy a little AI box that's US compliant. You can put it there in your office and put all of your stuff on it, and it's not going to be out on the internet
Not
necessarily.
cloud connected.
It's
Yeah.
not cloud
Except for when you
connected.
want it to. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, in
do you
But
have
addition to
a
yeah.
that,
place? Do you have a place for that server, Gus?
heck yeah, it's right in my heart. I love that idea, and not to mention that it's a lot less expensive. So those are two very
Yeah,
major things
it's true.
that are giving AWS a nod. Not quite sure how AWS defends the, hey, we're going to give you a box so that you can control your data, when their whole business model is you give them their data and it's out there. So which one's right?
They said that you can connect to the cloud when you want to. I think, yeah, it's going to be a hybrid of some sort. I think down the road that they're going to be saying, okay, certain kinds of data, yes, you will cloud connect and pull that in for, especially, yes, because they've been a repository for a lot of data. They have access to that your AI can pull in when it needs it, but it's not live on the internet all the time or internet accessible in any way. So I think that is going to be pretty positive for a lot of CISOs out there.
Bill, you use Gemini, right?
Frankly, I use almost all of them. As a matter of fact, the apps that I've been building recently have upwards of 10 APIs, which an API is an application programming interface. And so it's my code is written to do, let's say, CRM. but my CRM is also hooked up to LinkedIn. So every person in my CRM, I have a link to their particular, and it's basically got a link to their LinkedIn. So when you click on one of my CRM folks, you can see exactly who they are on LinkedIn, which is ever changing, right? It stays evergreen because now I don't copy that information over to my system. I don't need to. But why? Because LinkedIn is there and it's hopefully going to be there for a while. But I can just reference, and I have their name and their company and sometimes their location, and my system goes out and finds their LinkedIn profile, right? So that's how you're linking to additional data. Like I said, I've got all AIs, so I have a link to send information out to get trends from X AI and X. I've got APIs that go out to OpenAI. I've got APIs that go to Claude and Anthropic. I've got APIs that go out and pull news, APIs that go out and pull stocks. So pretty much my applications are the code that it runs on my server, but a lot of it just goes out and sends over a prompt over to an AI system. And so I'm able to build code that is specifically for me. So I know I was talking to Jim the other day and I said, hey, if you were to design your own word processor or your own Excel, you would design it for the functions that you needed, right? Because how long does it take to learn all the functions of like Word? Imagine if all you had up there were the things that you needed, but you didn't need all the things that other people needed. If you removed from the ribbon all of the commands and all of the things that other people needed, but you didn't need, it would reduce the complexity and it wouldn't be so overwhelming when you look at these apps.
I was listening to Elon Musk the other day, and he was saying, in the future, there won't be apps like we have them today. You'll just have AI. That's it. And this kind of lines up with what you're talking about. We don't need all the bells and whistles. We need what we need when we want it. And that's what's coming. And that's what he's saying, is that in the future will be very different. You won't buy all these apps. You'll just feed into AI. You'll tell it what you want, and it'll create it.
So back to AWS, though, where I was going with the Gemini is that, in contrast to what I said about it being less expensive, I think the future of this is they're all going to be free. It's going to be driven by Google, Meta, companies like that, because it's all about access.
Possible.
And AWS has a huge advantage with access because they have 30% market share in the cloud business. But look at Google. And Google was in the crapper just recently, right? We thought they were going out of business because who's going to search in Google anymore? I very seldomly do. But with this Gemini, and I believe that's going to be free. And I think it's going to change things significantly. And I'm not sure what ChatGPT is.
Well, that's what Google is doing with Gemini. They're essentially making it free.
That's my point.
Part of their browser. Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's going to win over a lot of people.
Yeah, I heard that too. I'm not sure, but that's very possible. But for right now, the driving factor of why that AWS might do well is the fact that they are now running on these H100s instead of these very costly other platforms necessary from NVIDIA for the other platforms like OpenAI and others.
Blackwell.
So, Blackwell. But anyhow, so they are coming in at a performance at 75% lower cost than OpenAI. OpenAI right now is $1.20 per million token for token pricing. So Bill, you're doing what you're doing is all this development work, and those are tokens in a lot of the ways. They revert back to tokens in a sense, but there's OpenAI is $1.20 per million right now, and AWS is saying they will get it down to 30 cents. 30 cents, 75% lower. Yeah, and that's what's going to drive people moving toward AWS.
Yeah, the other thing is, if you look at what's happening with the OpenAI relationship with Microsoft, right? that's changing to where now they're competitors to some degree, because the Microsoft tools with Copilot are doing some of the same things that OpenAI is doing. So now I notice that when I go to Copilot, I've got a little button up there and it says, hey, use ChatGPT. So you can choose to use both, but that's a partnership. But more and more they're bifurcating into not just partners, but potential competitors in the future. And they say that 80% of OpenAI's business is the $20 a month subscription that consumers are getting, right? So 80% is consumers in OpenAI, and that's their revenue. And I think they have like maybe $1 billion worth of revenue, but they're worth $500 billion. And then, but this is the other thing that's a little bit scary. They are leveraged and have already a future spending budget for all those data centers and all those things, $1 trillion. So they've basically committed to $1 trillion of spending. And I don't know what their revenue is. It's not anywhere
in
near
that ballpark.
that, maybe 20 billion or whatever, but it's not going to support the $1 trillion worth of spending that they have committed. And so it could end up being a Netscape kind of thing, right? Because when Netscape first came out, they got so much capital and it just swelled, and then they couldn't sell their servers, they couldn't sell their browser.
Yeah, they couldn't
and
deliver.
so the market collapsed on them, and they could never hope to give an investor a return on investment because the amount of capital that they had was so huge. That's happening, in my opinion, to OpenAI right now.
You know what OpenAI has going for it, though, is the good old-fashioned concept that we as humans like to stick with what we know. They have such a big market share, and sure, it's
First mover. Yeah.
dropping a little bit, but do I want to learn a whole new system because it's 10% better or 20% cheaper? I think I stay right where I'm at.
Yeah, they own 60% of that market, and that a little more than that, I think. But it's pretty hard to see people move away from it. Of course, probably all of us have all of the AI versions out there. We've got Grok, we've got Google, Gemini, and X, and all of this, right? So we're not the typical consumer of AI. We're into it because we see different uses of. They don't all do things well. They're not all the best at everything, right? So I like OpenAI. I like OpenAI because I started with it, and it's text-based mostly is what I do, so that's fine, and it does graphics pretty well. But then I found out that Gemini did a much better job of some of the photo things I needed to do, and so there's different purposes. Grok is probably more conservative leaning, or would I say more truth to information than the other platforms. So
They're
it's
up
kind
on
of like,
current affairs. There's
yes.
a connection with X. They know what happened yesterday, whereas a lot of them don't.
But that's not what the AI platforms want you to do. They don't want you to be a member with all four of them or five of them, whatever the case may be. They want you to come to them. They're going to have to improve their capability to do that. So OpenAI has been lax a little bit, and other platforms are rising above. So now they've got to get their engineering team together and say, we've got to do better. We've got to increase this. This is a survival thing. We've got 60% of the market. They had 80% of the market. They dropped 20% in less than, yeah, true. But since the other AIs have shown up, they've dropped 20% of that 80% really quick.
And
So
some
now they're
people
down
think
to
that they're going to end up being the gorilla, the market
Sure.
gorilla, but that is going to be in the 30% because
Yeah,
the
that's what I hear.
they're going to get a third of the market, even though they're a first mover. One of the things that you guys need to know is, for instance, I use Anthropic's Claude for my coding and that sort of thing, and it's a spectacular tool, Claude Code. But there's competitors with OpenAI who came along a little later, and OpenAI has Codex, which is a CLI coding tool as well. And I went over and just kind of looked at it, but I wasn't ready to take all of my mind share and give it all to one or the other. You just kind of look at it and say, yeah, maybe it does this a little bit better or that a little bit better, but it's not enough to get me to to move all of my business over to a different one. But I was trying to solve a problem with text to search. You can take text and you can have it go to speech, text to speech, sorry. And so you can take text and you can send it to an AI and it will create voice or speech, right? 11 Labs and OpenAI and that sort of thing. I went and asked, I said, doesn't Claude, Anthropic's Claude, have that text to search? They don't. So
Text to
Claude
speech.
doesn't text to speech. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
And so they don't. So I have to send my information. If I want it going text to speech, I have to send it to OpenAI or to 11 Labs or somebody else to have that done. And those are the sort of things that you run into with all these APIs is this one can do it, this one can't do it. If you want real-time information, you have to send it to Grok because Grok is the only one who has current trends because it's connected to the X platform and it gets all those trends and of people talking about things in social media and it's connected in real time.
You're not a typical user, so you're specializing. I think of an analogy of photography. What do we all take pictures on? Our
Family.
phone. Why? Because
Yeah,
it's
no
easy.
more. Hardly any more cameras. Yeah.
Is the quality as good as these? You see these guys if they're photographing a sporting event or a presidential debate, whatever, they have those big long lenses and everything else. They work better, just like the different codes work better for specific things. For a person like yourself that's leveraging them at a high level, for the rest of us, average folks, I think that we're not going to be going to all the different AIs. We're going to learn one, as I said earlier. You're going to learn one. You're going to stick with it, and it's good enough. Just like my phone, it takes perfectly fine pictures. I have thousands of dollars worth of camera equipment that I don't touch, and so do you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it used to be our stereo equipment with all the audio files.
And our music collection. How about our music collection? We were so proud of it.
Yeah, it went from albums to cassettes, from cassettes to CDs, from CDs to online, and
you missed 8-track.
And from owning,
I did have 8-track.
From owning to renting.
I just didn't want to show my age, Jim.
But the final step, Bill, is from going from owning whatever you just went through all the different things you'd own to renting, subscription. Spotify comes up with 100,000 new tracks per day. Wow. How are you going to compete with that? You have access to it.
Yeah, there's no scarcity. And the trouble with that is that remember when we used to go to Tower Records and stuff? Yeah. Spend hours in there and
oh, now we're going back in history.
How old are you, Bill?
Oh my goodness.
Vinyl?
Hey, we probably should wrap up this AWS subject. And so as a final closing point to this thing, my concern is always the security architecture perspective, the CISO perspective, right? The reason why AWS AI Factory may succeed or has a good chance of succeeding over other AI platforms is one, they're going to have an air gap compute system, which is appealing to CISOs right now, air gap completely. The second thing is it's for the local inference, they can work on classified workloads and they don't have to be concerned about it being leaked out to the cloud. And then cloud aggregation capability now between all the systems that they will own, they can aggregate within their own systems, which would be great. And then, of course, it's a unified system that they can build on and have different layers and to move into different environments. So that's why I think is something that's positive. And maybe not everybody's going to see that for a while because I know AWS still has to package it, get it out, and really test it. So it's down the road, but it's coming.
Interesting topic.
Yeah, and that leads us to our last topic of the day, and that is quantum computing. And most of us are aware, and I'll explain it so that everybody who's listening can understand. When you hook up to your bank, you use SSL, and it's encrypted communications. And those encrypted communications, we used to just have it when data was in movement, right? We have the HTTPS S is for security, right? And now we don't just have encryption when it's moving, traveling data, but we have encryption at rest. When we put the data on our disk, so if you take your old computer and you surplus it, if you have encryption of the data on your disk, you don't have to worry so much if somebody steals the disk or the computer, because all of the data is encrypted at rest. All of this information, whether it's in movement or whether it's at rest, is potentially, and I do say potentially, at risk, because quantum computing can use Shor's algorithm in order to decrypt what we now have encrypted. Now, we don't know whether that's 3 years, 5 years, or 30 years in the making, but we do know that it's technically possible once quantum computing has enough qubits to basically run Shor's algorithm and reverse decrypt the data. But what does that mean? That means that the bad guys can listen to all of your packets, and they can store those packets from going to and from the bank. And then once they can break the encryption, now they're taking it and storing it, what they hear on the wire, and they can store that. And then when quantum can break it, all your secrets are gone. Same thing with all that data that's on your disk. So it's an interesting equation, and we don't want to go into it entirely here. We will cover these topics and give everybody a little bit more technical knowledge over time.
We can summarize it a little bit, is that
Sure.
the issue with quantum right now is the fact that there's so many errors that they cannot eliminate in its processing. So it's not error free. So that's the data that it outputs is not dependable. So when you think about it, IBM was saying that they estimate it takes 1.9 billion good qubits to crack the Bitcoin cryptography. And the best that we have today is under 1,000 qubits, good qubits.
I thought it was 50.
No, it's under 1,000, but it's not down to 50. But under 1,000 good. Now that's changing rapidly because they keep turning out systems that can use more and more qubits at the same time.
Yeah,
So
Google has a new chip out that's basically a small quantum processor, and Willow, and it's proving that it can do some transactions that would take some quintillion years to do with a classical computer, and it can do it in minutes. So we're proving the paradigm that quantum can do things that classical computing can't. And one of those things is breaking your Bitcoin encryption in the future.
Hold on a second. I got to go sell my Bitcoin. I have a lot of Bitcoin and XRP and all those guys.
You probably have 4 or 5 years going to it.
That is a risk for the future.
Oh, yeah.
So thankfully, NIST has arrived at a few different candidates to use, but it's going to cost millions of dollars. But now we have the standard candidates that NIST has published and chosen to basically begin doing quantum resistant encryption.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, there are companies now that are creating trading platforms that allows you to keep all of that cryptography local to your own system, so it's not out there to be broken. So that's a good thing in the future, but it's not here yet. We'll see that coming down the pike. So it's not like there's no hope. It's just that can the new anti-quantum cryptography get in place before they break the existing cryptography?
And the
so
risk
it's just a race.
The risk is that if anybody listens to the internet and then stores it, as soon as it can break it, your secrets are gone, right? Your access to your bank is gone. And then, of course, all those disks that you have where it's basically encrypted data at rest, those disks are now at risk of having your secrets disclosed as soon as quantum can be broken.
Right.
That's going to take, so the sooner, and here's one of the things that people don't realize. You do not need quantum to have quantum resistant encryption. The technology that we're using is more expensive. It's harder to do than our current encryption methods, but the post-quantum encryption, that's what they call it, post-quantum. It's quantum resistant encryption. Those capabilities take more processing, but we can still do it with classical computers. So the good news is we can get to post-quantum encryption, quantum resistant encryption now, and then all that data you have on those old disk drives and all those banking sessions that you have, the sooner we can get to quantum resistant encryption, the further we will be down the road, and that data is no longer viable. So we'll have to change our secrets. There's a lot of stuff that will have to happen, but the sooner we get to that post-quantum encryption today, all the data on our disks, all the data in transit will not be able to be decrypted by quantum in the future. So the sooner we get there, the better.
Yeah. So although this article is really about the concern about breaking Bitcoin, this is an everything issue. It's not about just Bitcoin. It's everything. If it breaks Bitcoin, it breaks all the world's secrets, period.
Yeah. So anybody have anything you want to revisit from this particular set of blocks that we have? The music, the encryption, the AWS moving into the AI space. And what else did we cover today? I
think there's a lot of parallels between all the subjects in that they're all uncharted territories. This is the changing world that we're in. And the one constant there that's seen through most of these subjects is the fact that we haven't had an AI czar. So how are we going? It's new. It's new.
Yeah.
And right down the line, same thing. It's a crazy world we're living in.
Yeah, I think one of the things they had said was the conflict of interest is that the things that he's working on could affect the businesses he's invested in. And look, guys, every business now is an AI business. If they're not, they're not gonna stay there. They're not going to survive. They're going to have to integrate AI
in
into
every investment
business
that everybody makes has something to do with AI. Who's going to be qualified to be non-invested in anything AI, right? To be the AI czar. Yeah, it's impossible.
Absolutely. Yeah, not a fairness issue to David Sacks. In fact, look, he's done the right thing. He's divested from the stocks that he had options on that would benefit him directly from AI. But all of those other businesses, they're getting into AI.
So let's hold a vote and let's just do a poll here. How many of us want to bring back Nancy Pelosi and draft her as the AI czar?
No, thank you.
Oh my goodness.
I've watched some of the segments with her on the news and stuff. She doesn't seem to be very happy, and she definitely doesn't like Trump.
Yeah.
She's not alone in that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Hey, it's been wonderful chatting with you. Look forward to next week. We'll get deeper into these areas of AI, crypto, quantum, robotics. We didn't cover robotics today, but obviously all of these technologies, folks, are converging. They are converging because automakers, right? Tesla's an automaker, but they have what? They have a new robot coming, and they have AI. And so all of these technologies are converging and every company is going to have an element of all the others. So as we cover all of these tech futures, we've built the index at techfuturesindex.com. If you want to get notification of every day when our charts change or something of that nature, you can subscribe to that on the website techfuturesindex.com. And this, of course, is morpheuscyber.com, and we really appreciate you hanging out. And we're early on into our podcast. Stay tuned. It's going to get better and better.
At this time, I'm going to ask you to fasten your seatbelts. On behalf of the flight crew, thank you for flying with us and have a pleasant day.